This is your favorite current affairs show here on Channel 1 Television. Here on The Point of View, we get the right guests, ask them relevant questions on issues that matter to you. And they don't come any bigger in these parts. We're very privileged to be speaking to a diplomat who's worked for 4 decades in development, 20 years in Africa, 3 years in Ghana. And she decided that for her last media interview, she'll be on your favorite Point of View to share her experience, a life in public service. Ambassador Virginia Palmer is my guest for the next 45 minutes. Stay with us.
Do you want a healthy smile?
Pregnant and experiencing oral health changes? Hi, I'm Tanya from Bethel Dental Clinic, Ghana. Pregnancy is a beautiful journey, but it can bring about hormonal shifts that affect your oral health. During pregnancy, maintaining good dental health is important, not just for the mother, but also for the baby's well-being. Try to maintain good oral health routines. That includes brushing twice daily with fluoride toothpaste, floss daily, and use mouthwash if recommended. Please remember that it is safe for pregnant women to visit the dentist for routine checkups, cleanings, and emergency treatments. Bethel Dental Clinic, your partner in prenatal dental health for a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby.
Healthy smile.
Let's get polytank.
Oh, and yeah, you're up fine.
Go straight.
No, I want to left, right.
And you grab right. Ghana na ye wono. So when you do more, and ye data. Oh no! Abe, na here. Me pe polytank ato. Enu nti na menu aba otu ko bia be na ba hayo. O food to bia, e de enjoy ye kura.
Akuya bulambo kotoman. Emu ha.
Like that they took my eyes. Go to the distributor and you give the original polytank. Polytank. You hear the sound?
Polytank. Papananka sankasa. Remember who we are singing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her. 20 ebitimi prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu. Nadia ubefamu. Actually, this is not my fault.
And
to wada. Entina midi meniche Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home. Facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear our system no. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Welcome back. So tonight we're privileged to be hosting the departing U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Excellency Ambassador Virginia Evelyn Palmer. She's been working in public service for 4 decades. She spent half of that in Africa, and her last posting is to Ghana, which is the gateway. So she's going out through the front door. We don't understand how that works. Before we even talk to her, we're going to give you a short flavor of the kind of person she is. Here's a quick profile that the production team put together of Ambassador Palmer.
Born in Pennsylvania on July 12, 1963, Virginia E. Palmer has spent her life building bridges across continents. With degrees from Georgetown University and the University of Virginia, she joined the U.S. Foreign Service and began a 36-year journey through some of the world's most pivotal diplomatic arenas. From early assignments in Kenya, China, and Zimbabwe to senior roles in Vietnam, South Africa, and Malawi, Palmer has led with quiet strength, managing billion-dollar aid programs, advancing global health, and promoting trade and human rights. As U.S. Ambassador to Ghana since 2022, Palmer has deepened U.S.-Ghana relations through key achievements, expanding U.S. support for Ghana's climate resilience and energy transition, helping launch the U.S.-Ghana Commercial Dialogue to boost trade and investment, and advancing regional security cooperation through the Accra Initiative. Her expertise spans counter-terrorism, energy diplomacy, and national security. Before Ghana, she served as Acting Assistant Secretary for Energy Resources and Deputy Commandant of the Eisenhower School at the National Defense University. Fluent in Mandarin and deeply committed to public service, she shares her global life with her husband, retired Foreign Service Officer Ismail Asmal, and their 2 daughters. Ambassador Palmer's story is one of unwavering dedication, a diplomat shaped by experience, guided by purpose, and driven by the belief that diplomacy can make the world a more just and connected place. Strengthened U.S.-Ghana economic ties, championed the launch of the U.S.-Ghana Commercial Dialogue, enhancing bilateral trade and attracting American investment across key sectors like energy, agriculture, and technology. Advanced climate and energy cooperation, expanded U.S. support for Ghana's climate resilience and clean energy transition, including collaboration on renewable energy projects and sustainable infrastructure. Promoted regional security and stability, deepened U.S. engagement with the Accra Initiative, bolstering regional efforts to counter violent extremism and enhance cross-border security coordination in West Africa. Facilitated legal travel and education opportunities, oversaw the issuance of approximately 25,000 U.S. visas to Ghanaians in 2024, supporting legal travel for work, study, and tourism, and reinforcing educational exchanges between the 2 nations. Her Excellency Ambassador Virginia E. Palmer is our guest on The Point of View tonight.
And she sat right here. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
How did you feel watching that?
Well, there's always a little bit of cringe when you watch yourself, but I am so proud of what the United States has done in partnership with Ghana.
I know that ambassadors, you say it's not about you, it's about what you do for your country, but I couldn't help see this as a life of public service. 40 years.
Well, thank you. That is a long time, and it's been a career that I have loved because I am proud to represent the United States and what it stands for, and proud in partnership with the places I've served to advance our mutual interest.
And so Africa is half of those 40 years, and Ghana is the final 3. How did it feel like when you were told you were going to start an Africa thing, because you had spent the first half in the US, I suspect?
Well, you know, I've been working my way up to Ghana, is how I think about it. And I had always wanted to come to Africa. I was an exchange student in South Africa in apartheid times, as when I was 16.
Oh God!
And saw then, you know, what effect the United States can have, and also what it means not to have the constitutional values that Americans so appreciate.
So clearly, Africa is a place you know and love now.
Indeed.
How has the Ghana posting been? When you were told you were coming to Ghana, what did you think about the country, and how did what you saw differ from what you thought?
Well, you know, Ghana has a special place in the heart of all Americans, I think, very much regarded as Black Star Rising and the first independent African country. And that means a great deal, I know, to the rest of Africa, but it meant a great deal to African Americans fighting for justice at the time. And it's continued to stand for something important to Americans. And the bridges between us are so strong, beginning in the transatlantic slave trade and in tragedy, but then being built upon by subsequent diasporas in both directions. Kwame Nkrumah studying in the United States and then coming and doing great things in Ghana, and more Ghanaians studying in the United States and coming home to do great things. And there are 1,400 American kids that study in Ghana every year.
Wow.
So those bridges are really strong. So I was very proud to have gotten this plum job.
Because I see you did South Africa and then Malawi, and I think you've done Kenya as well. So probably Ghana is your first West African post?
Indeed. I had a lot to learn.
Ghana is described by some as Africa for beginners. And yeah, this is your exit. So we'll touch a bit on that. For me, the key thing is, having done 40 years, the world has changed, right? Because this will be early 80s or mid 80s that you started. And now we have a very interesting situation in the world where we are digitally moving. There's a lot of young people in Africa now. How has the job changed?
Boy, that's a giant question. That digital stuff has meant that there is more kind of direct Washington involvement. Back in the day, you had to wait for the diplomatic pouch, so diplomats had a lot of independence. Now your talking points are you go back and forth on policy matters with Washington more than you did back in the day. But I think the sort of fundamentals of the work haven't changed. My job is to explain a foreign government's policy and what they're thinking and the reality they're facing to my government, so we can make good policy decisions and understand your policy decisions. And also an element of people-to-people relations, because it isn't all about political military affairs or government-to-government things. The people-to-people ties really matter.
The world has actually changed in a number of ways, if you permit me. So, for example, in 1961, USAID started, and we've seen the work is done. 100 countries, tens of thousands of employees. A couple of weeks or months ago, you can say it ceased to exist. Such a thing changes, even for you who's representing your country, it changes the meaning of your work, doesn't it? Because these are lives touched, people you've worked with. I know some who've worked for 10 years in education and health. And then because there's a change in focus at the headquarters, you have to defend that. That must be tough.
Well, I like the way you asked the question, because you put it in the context of evolution. And I think U.S. assistance is evolving as the world is evolving and as our relationship with countries, particularly developing countries, evolve. And as the countries that we've helped achieve middle income status and are interested in more agency and more autonomy, the beginning that you describe, I think, could be characterized by major infrastructure investments like the Akasambo Dam in Ghana. And there are a lot of Ghanaians, and me too even, who think that those infrastructure investments are very catalytic and want more of that. But USAID assistance evolved into more systemic assistance for health and economic growth and education, the environment, and I'm very proud of that work. I think we've made real accomplishments. You look at statistics like 1 in 4 kids in Ghana in 2012 having the malaria parasite, and now that number has gone down to 1 in 10. The number of deaths has decreased by 2/3, and that's thanks to work that Ghana's done with American assistance. And that's lives saved, it's kids in school, it's more middle-class Ghanaians buying Ghanaian-produced and American-produced products. It's good for both of us. And I'm very proud of that work. And now I think under the Trump administration, it's going to further shift into an emphasis on commercial relations. And I've reflected back on things that President Mahama said, that said, essentially, we don't want a relationship based on aid. We want a relationship based on commercial ties. And Troy Futrell, who's the senior official for Africa in Washington now, was just saying that a commercial relationship is one between equals. And I think that's where we have evolved to now.
But you would admit that we are not equal in terms of economic powers, abilities, and in faces. For example, in July, when we attended, you were 248. This is your 248th independence anniversary, right? So as a country, you've existed for much longer in the form in which you're in than, say, a country like Ghana. So there's a place for aid. So even though we should be having a conversation on trade and commercial, as they say, you can walk and chew gum. So from a development perspective, isn't it regrettable that maybe we couldn't influence the administration to have a different idea or even persist a bit more with some of the programs that we know are so important?
Let me clarify a couple of things.
Yes,
One is, I think we are equals. Your economy is smaller than mine, and you have been independent for less time than the United States. But I think we must work together as equals. That's number one. And number two, I agree with you that there is still a place for development assistance and partnership. But I want to also be very clear that we haven't stopped that. And USAID has been the functions of U.S. aid will now be run by the State Department, by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And that's something, to be honest, that I've advocated for decades. I think that U.S. assistance is funded with U.S. taxpayer money, and it's a foreign policy tool. And it ought to be run by the Foreign Policy Ministry. I don't think that that will cause any difference in focus or effect. I think that can be a
So let me get that. So
good
does
thing.
that mean that, for example, your programs in education or say trade are going to continue, just that it will be managed by staff in the State Department?
That's the second part of my clarification, is that indeed we did cut some programs. And I am sorry about that, and because I'm very proud of the work that they did. But many programs have persisted, in particular the life-saving programs like malaria prevention, mother-to-child and prevention of HIV prevention, life-saving mother and early childhood programs all persist, vaccines, basic medicines, and that's to the tune of between 40 and 50 million US dollars a year. And that's in addition to $25 million a year in security assistance, which is joint military training, things like the armored personnel carriers that I turned over to the Ghana Armed Forces last week to make Ghana more secure. So U.S. partnership with Ghana and assistance to Ghana very much continues and is very robust.
So that's happening to you. Just a final one on this. I remember, I think a year ago, I moderated a program organized by USAID, and this had to do with cashew. And I think this was a program to help the value chain. So there were different cashew farmers discussing how to add value to Ghanaian cashew and stuff like this. So the fact that we're moving into a commercial relationship, you would have thought that programs in the trade area, capacity building for exporters, that would rather persist, right? So I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect there.
I hope that some of that will continue. Some of that is still under evaluation. There are a couple of things that we need to look at in terms of the commercial relationship. One is making the commercial relationship more equal. I think that...
Thank you.
Okay, good. The African Growth and Opportunity Act has been enforced for 25 years, and that's given Ghana and other African countries duty-free access to the United States for 6,500 products. And that's been a boon, I think, to the commercial growth and export growth that you're talking about. However, African countries haven't reciprocated with the United States, and there are significant trade barriers to American exports to Africa and to Ghana.
Is it?
And yes, and
A couple of examples?
well, I think the average tariff on American products in Ghana is over 30%. And you've negotiated, meanwhile, free trade agreements with our European competitors, for example.
They've been very aggressive with their EPAs.
Indeed, yes.
They have.
And so now we're having some good conversations with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about ways that we can make our trade relationship more equal.
And let's move to trade. The way President Trump applied the tariffs, it gave the impression that there was no special relationship. Which is a bit sad, because Ghana likes to see itself as a U.S. ally and was hoping for some recognition of that in the way the tariffs were applied. So when we heard that Ghana take that 10%, I was like, ooh. So I don't know how that sat and whether there's been any movement on that since you met the Ghanaian authorities.
Well, I wouldn't put it that way.
Okay.
Indeed, there are 10% tariffs applied globally, which is a tack that the new administration in the United States has taken. That may be in the short term to Ghana's advantage vis-a-vis its competitors. Oil and gas, which is the major export to the United States, is not subject to tariff. Cocoa right now is, but that's a 10% tariff. Cote d'Ivoire, which is your major competitor, is subject to a 21% tariff. The same is true in apparel, which I know President Mahama cares a lot about because it employs a lot of youth and women. If Ghana faces a 10% tariff, but Bangladesh and Vietnam face 47% and 63%, because there were 60 countries that got a tariff that was much higher than 10%. That may redound in the near term to Ghana's advantage as the apparel market kind of sorts itself out. If AGOA is not renewed, then I think we go back to most favored nation status, and the advantages to Ghana won't persist. And so I hope that AGOA will be renewed, but I also hope that Ghana will be the one making that point to the American legislature, because it's the legislature that has to renew it when it expires at the end of September.
Final piece on this issue. I know you did some work in Vietnam. Vietnam and Bangladesh are really solid on the apparels. What can we learn from them? Because I know there are people in the sector who really want to crack it. And they see the US as an opportunity. I've seen a company, Dignity something.
Yeah.
I have friends in parts of the north trying to set up similar things. I don't know whether it's a financing problem, but what are your quick thoughts on how can Ghana really take advantage of the textile in this window, now that the Bangladeshi and Vietnamese are paying much more in tariffs?
I'll give you a big answer to that question.
Right.
DTRT is the company you're referring
Yes.
to, and we're very proud of DTRT because USAID programs that benefit many companies because they provided training to particularly women that work in that field. A lot of them went and worked at DTRT, and then they export a lot to the United States. But improvements to the business climate in general help Ghanaian exporters, Ghanaian companies that are here, and help encourage U.S. investment in Ghana. So and I've been talking with the government of Ghana about that my entire tenure. And I'm very pleased to see President Mahama make that his number one priority, I think. He talked in his inaugural address about improving the business climate as being essential to Ghana's economic recovery. So there are some things that can happen with the Ghana Revenue Authority, with access to credit, with a number of things like contract sanctity and payment of government arrears that will help make this a much more attractive place to invest for American companies and Ghanaian companies. And I will also say that small businesses, if Ghanaian small businesses are paid on time, they'll thrive. And if they're not paid on time, they can't survive.
A lot of economic diplomacy going on there. This is the point of view. My guest is Ambassador Virginia Palmer, who is exiting not just Ghana after 3 years of service, but we're told she's exiting. Is it a foreign service now or just public service?
Well, I'll have to think about what other public service I can do after I retire from the foreign service.
Fair enough. We've been discussing briefly US aid. We've spoken a bit about the economic side. When we come back, we'll touch on a few other things. Security is key. The never to be ignored visa questions. The energy sector seems very important these days, and she's quite an expert there. And also, what next? So this is the point of view. This is an exit interview, and she's doing it on Channel 1, your favorite dial. Stay with us.
Excellent. Be that business owner that stands out and is very productive.
You're so confident. How do you do it?
It starts with Built. Where does your confidence come from? Paperwork made simple. Built takes all the hassle away. Yeah, don't be like her. Built is your all-in-one simplified finance platform. It's your home for invoices, payments, your payroll, and so much more.
Oh, wow.
Grow your business today. Sign up now at Built.Africa. Download the Built app now.
Hi, my name is Ochiame Kwame. I live at the plush Leisure Den Symphonic, a real estate property developed by Whaley Properties, the very developers of Vista Del Mare and the beautiful Alphabet City. So come with me to site. Let me introduce you to your new home, a gated community with 24-hour security in the heart of Sakomono. Behind me is going to be Willow Lane, where elegance will meet tranquility. You are going to be greeted with a 4-bedroom ensuite home with an elevator, swimming pool, children's playground, constant electricity, and many more. But wait, it gets even more interesting for early birds like you. You get a whopping $50,000 discount. Yes, I said $50,000 if you purchase between now and the end of this month. So call us now or visit us. Willow Lane, where elegance meets tranquility.
member we are seeing now, at risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her 20 ebitimi prostate cancer, 5 bitimi afamu na dia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi maniche Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. Madame home facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear system ni. Ye nro ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Introducing Betway's Bet Influencer, a groundbreaking feature where you can make money by just sharing codes.
He just needs to share his codes and make money. The more his codes are used,
the more money he makes.
Oh yes. So, what are you waiting for?
Anyone can be a bet influencer. Share your codes and make money.
Bet Influencer, another world first from Betway.
This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Betway, get way more.
Welcome back. The point of view tonight is having an exit interview with the outgoing U.S. ambassador to Ghana. 40 years working in the public service, serving the U.S. government. Half of that in Africa. 3 of those 20 here in Accra, Ghana as ambassador. And she has graciously said she will speak on the point of view before she leaves to reflect on her work. Let's take you back to her first day in office. The team put together, her team this time, put together a short video of her first day in office. Enjoy.
Ghanafo, Michiamo. I'm Virginia Palmer. I'm the newly arrived United States Ambassador in Ghana. I'm so excited to be here. My husband Ismail Asmal and I are happy to be returning to Africa. We've lived in Zimbabwe, Kenya, South Africa, and most recently Malawi, where I had the honor of serving as U.S. Ambassador. I love the work I do, so I always jump immediately into talking about policy. But I should pause for a second and tell you a little bit about myself. I love to travel and meet new people and try different cuisines. I already love Keliwele and know that Ghanaian jollof is the best and much better than Nigeria's. I love wildlife and the outdoors, so I'm anxious to get to Mole and Bia National Parks. Indeed, I want to explore all of Ghana's national parks. Ismail and I are avid art and handicraft buyers, and I'm a little craftsy myself. I enjoy painting and have started making quilts out of the beautiful fabrics I've bought in Africa. Ismail and I are incredibly proud of our daughters, Aaliyah and Nadia, and our son-in-law, Paul. They're not accompanying us this time around, but will be frequent visitors to Ghana. I've reflected a lot on what it means to serve in Ghana. Ghana played an important role in the history and development of the United States, as the large Ghanaian diaspora in the United States attest. Many have answered the call of Ghana's year of return, and in addition to many visitors from the United States, there are 45,000 Americans in Ghana today. I'm moved by the fact that at the time of Ghana's independence, Ghana was a beacon not just for other African countries striving to throw off the yoke of colonial rule, but also for American civil rights activists struggling for justice and equality at home. That struggle continues today because democracy is hard work. With our shared democratic values, I know that Ghana too is working to perfect its democracy. The embassy will support that work with programs to protect human rights and strengthen civil society, to uphold accountable governance and show how democracy can deliver what citizens want effectively and equitably. I'm also excited to deepen our trade and investment relations and increase our $2.7 billion in two-way trade. I look forward to continuing our work to support entrepreneurs, empower women and young people, because anything done to empower women is good for everything else. and spur inclusive economic growth. I'm also looking forward to getting to know Ghana, to buying some kente and fugu dresses and learning some of the Ghanaian languages and seeing more of your beautiful country. Most of all, though, I look forward to meeting you. See you soon. Oye wadon. Medasi. Thank you.
Wow, so that was 3 years ago. It was like you were launching a manifesto. Looking back on that, would you say you've been able to do, how well do you think you've done having seen this 3 years after?
Oh, gee, there's still work to be done to deepen the relationship.
Yeah.
But I do think the relationship is thriving.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to have been here for Ghana's elections and my own. And to see the power of democracy and see the power of democracy in the region. And also to see Ghana remain a beacon for the region and an example of democracy, which I think is incredibly important.
Possibly the only example.
Well, not the only one, but certainly the strongest one.
West Africa has changed because I take you back again. First time I visited Kenya in 2011, I was surprised that I had to be scanned for everything to enter a hotel, to enter a university. They are very security conscious because the area is considered a higher risk. It seems to me as if because of what's happening in the Sahel, West Africa is generally becoming, it's not what it used to be 30 years ago. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, this is indeed the epicenter of terrorist violence globally. There are more attacks in Burkina Faso than anywhere else in the world. And Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are all facing terrible security problems because of a common enemy, and that enemy is common to the United States and Ghana as well. I think Ghana has been a beacon of stability for a number of reasons. Democracy, number one, people feel like they can affect the change they need to affect. The second is the government of Ghana's commitment to inclusive economic growth and social cohesion. So the government of Ghana is paying attention to make sure that social services are delivered in the north, which is poorer than the south generally, and that vulnerable populations on the border or vulnerable ethnicities like the Fulbe receive social services to which they're entitled. And the third is that you are an exporter of security. You play an outsized role in cooperating with your neighbors and sharing intelligence to defeat a common enemy, but also in supporting UN peacekeeping, for example, and that makes you more stable.
Why do you think the Sahel, and in particular those three countries, have become so, because some people feel like the vacuum left after the Libya episode could have been part, because there's a lot of weapons coming in from Mali, and of course a lot of the citizens are frustrated with France, and that also so I just don't know why has the Sahel become so dangerous?
I mean, that's a very complex question, and I think all of those factors apply, but I think the solution to that, the solution to a security problem is not less democracy, it's more democracy, because that democracy and that confidence that you can affect change through the ballot box rather than through a gun is very important to stability. The other factor in Ghana, which I think is important, is Ghana's tolerance, your religious tolerance and your inter-ethnic harmony. And those are things that I deeply admire. And I think to help the Central Sahel, I've been intrigued by President Mahama's approach of saying let's talk about what we need to do to make ourselves more secure and more safe and to improve and deepen the relationship, and then we'll talk about democracy.
But is democracy necessarily the answer, though? And don't misconstrue this. I love the democracy Ghana has, but you quoted Franklin on 24th, was it 4th July 2004, when you said that a republic, if you can keep it, because you said that keeping a republic is harder than establishing a republic. So that suggests that if the democracy does not deliver the goods, people can get frustrated. So, and that's part one. And point two, should we say democracy is the answer? Isn't it good governance is the answer?
Oh, that's a good way to put it. But I think you get the best governance with democracy. I believe that, because you can hope that an undemocratic ruler will be benevolent, but you can't guarantee that. And the democratic checks and balances put them on notice that I can remove you if you don't deliver for me. So I think the best way to get delivery of good governance is democracy. I think what's implied in your question, and I will own, is that if we preach democracy, we have to hold our partners accountable for good governance. We can't tolerate a friend who's been in office for 40 years. We have to also say, hey, you need to be more democratic. You need to be more responsive to the demands of your people. And in that little clip you played of me 3 years ago, I talked about equitable and inclusive governance, which is the good governance that you're talking about.
But in the kind of world we are in, where it's almost very bilateral, in the sense that in the past there were coalitions of countries working to solve problems. It doesn't appear to us as though the current administration is as interested in that. So, for example, if you look at, and we are not discussing Europe, right? But if you look at what happened with NATO and President Trump's views around, look, we can't keep paying for your wars, so everybody has to contribute. So it appears everybody's on their own. That's the impression we get from the administration's stance. And yet a complex problem like Sahel requires collaborative resolution. How do you reconcile that?
I would rephrase or restate that. It's not that we don't value international institutions and organizations. It's that we don't want the United States to bear all the cost of them, that the benefits of those accrue to many countries, and countries like our NATO partners should pay the share that they've committed to pay. And President Trump in his first term put NATO allies on notice about that, and they have been responding. But that doesn't mean that we don't value international organizations.
But does he believe in multilateralism?
Well, I think multilateralism has its role.
Because if you, I mean, for example, the United Nations and all these, I mean, look, this is 2025, right? 80 years since the UN was started. So for me, a 40-something-year-old, the world as I know it was framed after the World War II, right? And that world, we decided to come together to solve problems collectively. Now, the rhetoric of the US president does not seem to necessarily believe in that. And also the position of the US as the so-called leader of the free world, that seems, we don't know if he even wants to own that space anymore.
Well, I think the United States and the world have benefited from that post-war era or post-war order of which you speak, and we continue to do so. I think the world has changed since then. There are partners who are much more prosperous than they were in 1945 or 1950, and who can bear a greater share of some of these organizations. And I think that's what President Trump is evaluating.
Does the increased relationship African countries have with China worry you personally or the administration? Because there's this chart that we were shown where, like 20 years ago, the US was our #1 trade partner for the whole of most of West Africa. Now most of us are doing more business with China. And that seems to be something your president harps on a lot. And the Chinese are also very active in Ghana. We do a lot of business with China. We have a very strong relationship with them coming in to sell goods here and that type of thing. How does that change the equation of the Ghana-US relationship?
You know, I'm very confident in the American brand. I think if the playing field is level, American innovation and creativity and the way we operate free from corruption is to the advantage of countries where we invest and trade. And I think we should help countries ensure that the playing field is level, so that there's not a race to the bottom, so that whatever foreign company is coming in isn't exploiting your labor or polluting your environment or operating illegally in your gold mines. When that happens, American companies will prosper and the relationship will prosper. I think American companies need to show up for that to be true. So I encourage them not to be too risk averse in places like Africa, because there's certainly money to be made and those relationships will be mutually beneficial.
Let's talk about the energy sector. I think the past 7 or 8 years, the upstream of the petroleum has been very quiet. Although I think one of the lead companies there is Cosmos, which is American. We're told by President Mahama that some activity would resume with some drilling. What's your overall analysis of Ghana's oil sector and its potential for transformation?
Actually, you summed it up very well. 10 years ago, huge potential. And in fact, the Minister of Energy and I were discussing this last night. At one stage, you were producing 195,000 barrels, and now it's down to like 135,000. And there's been no developmental drilling in the last 7 years. So that sector isn't growing, and that's because of some things that inhibited investment or were a disincentive to investment in the sector in the last 7 years. And so President Mahama and Minister Jinapur are looking hard at that and looking to see how they can incentivize new investment. So indeed, Cosmos is interested, and there's some American other big oil companies also looking. So I think there's a lot of potential in that sector.
The compact was big when President Kufuor started with the first one, and the second one on energy, very promising. We know the reason why it was discontinued. But when you were appointed, some of my media friends said, because of your background in the energy sector, we should be hopeful that you could put in a word for, if not a renewal of the council compact, certainly some conversation around the power sector because of its transformative nature. What can you tell us, General, about the possibility of any serious support in the power sector, even if not in the form of a compact? Because we see the challenges ECG is facing, and we hear what the government is trying to do. What can you tell me about the power sector?
Two questions there. I'll start with the compact, and then I'll go to the ECG, and please remind me if I lose my thought. On the Millennium Challenge Compact, I told President Akufo-Addo when I presented my credentials, when my letter from President Biden, that I would work with him to see if we could get another compact, because there were some missteps on the second compact, and we had to cancel $190-some million of the second compact, to the great my personal disappointment, and also the disappointment of the Millennium Challenge Compact. And President Mahama, who was there for the beginning of that compact, told me when he was still a candidate that that was one of his priorities. So he and I had common cause on that. And indeed, while he was still a candidate, he went and had meetings at the Millennium Challenge Compact, which I was very happy about, and I did too. Right now, we don't know what form the Millennium Challenge Compact will take. So I remain committed to helping Ghana if new compacts become available, with helping Ghana become eligible. The two factors that are essential to eligibility are passing a scorecard, so it's governing well on behalf of your people, which Ghana does, and also maintaining a certain score on anti-corruption, which Ghana does, and it's important to keep that up. And then also to demonstrating that the last compact was successful. And a key element of the last compact was the financial viability of the ECG. Because ECG is bleeding your exchequer, and it's bleeding your exchequer more than we thought. I used the factor $1.4 billion a year. When the Minister of Finance spoke to the National Economic Dialogue, he said $2.2 billion a year, which is essentially effectively the scale of your IMF program. So those losses, either at the electricity pole or in the counting rooms, are enormous. And I was very pleased to see President Mahama announce a panel to evaluate ECG and what reforms are necessary. And I'm looking forward to seeing the results of that.
A reform of ECG would put Ghana in a good place to benefit if there were to be any kind of power compact. It's almost like a precondition, right?
I think reform of ECG is going to be good for the Ghanaian economy, full stop. You need to do it because it'll be good for the Ghanaian economy, not just as an incentive.
No, because the minister talks about we need investment, and he's been talking about needing investment in the distribution chain, and the compact does provide money. So, and because you said that the preconditions may include the success of the previous compact, of which the ECG performance was one.
Right.
So that if we got ECG working better, it puts the country in a better position to benefit from more support on the power side.
It puts the country in a position to benefit from whatever assistance is available, but also from more foreign investment, all kinds of things. I mean, you face Dumsor without sort of getting the power sector in workable condition. So it's essential. Another element of that, if I may speak frankly,
yes, please,
is that our independent power producers are owed hundreds of millions of US dollars. And we gotta be frank that investors in that sector don't invest without calling the companies that are on the ground already and saying, what's it like to invest in Ghana? Should I invest in Ghana or should I invest somewhere else? And they're going to say, Ghana's fabulous, Ghana's stable, it's democratic, the people are warm, their population is well educated,
they don't
but
time.
I'm not getting paid. And the bottom line is getting paid and getting paid on time is probably factor number one of the ones I listed.
We'll come back and wrap up with the question most of you want me to ask, visas, and the whole issue around Ghanaians working and living in the US. We'll deal with those when we come back. Stay with us.
Fire pomudi ni agobio Ghana fu ni age efri say ya your local spices na ya frafra dia ya sankofa natural spice
me dey go me jollof mu ni me still ahodoma e ma ne dance
Stanley, the barbecue they go on.
sankofa natural spices and one you use 100% natural.
Adofo, mamunye huge mistake. Sankofa natural spices. Didi.
FDA ejedi nkratu yatu.
Imagine walking into a secure environment you call your own, a home where you are in charge of your own security. But while you dream of a brighter future, shadows could be lurking at your doorsteps and windows. With real-time alerts and a professional response team ready to act, your home is protected around the clock, whether you're away or asleep. Don't wait for safety, create it. Installed by professionals, our systems integrate seamlessly into your home, guarding every nook and cranny. And with our rent-to-own plan, this unmatched security comes with no burdensome upfront cost. Enjoy your safety, payment at your own pace, and peace of mind. Plus, our theft guarantee protection ensures you're covered in case of any loss, giving you even more peace of mind. Secure your home with Home Shield. Make peaceful sleep a habit, knowing we stand guard. Response 1, protecting your world 24/7.
Has it in a wide position, so what's next? Ronaldo. This could be. There's still danger here.
Goal! Goal! In 1924, my grandpa was a champion. 2024, Meso be a champion.
Hey, digital champion. It's about the end.
Digital champion, what can TV shop online?
Let me help you get what you need from Enterprise now.
It's this simple. I just log into my Enterprise account using the Enterprise Self-Service portal. Then, I just click on this button for their new Advantage Point Loyalty Scheme. Then, boom, the fun begins. Wow. Yes, once I start making purchases under any subsidiary, I can now earn a lot of points and redeem it as airtime, Momo, and more.
Customers only.
Even on your birthday,
you earn points.
Yes, even when you like and share on the portal,
you earn points.
Yes.
Purchase an Enterprise policy today to enjoy this exclusive offer and start earning rewards. Because nothing you do should be pointless.
Oh, then redeem Momo with your points and send to me.
Hey, Mr. Digital Champion.
Enterprise, your advantage.
Introducing Betway's Bet Influencer, a groundbreaking feature where you can make money by just sharing codes.
He just needs to share his codes and make money. The more his codes are used,
the more money he makes.
Oh yes. So, what are you waiting for?
Anyone can be a bet influencer. Share your codes and make money.
Bet Influencer, another world first from Betway.
This advert has been approved by the Gaming Commission of Ghana. Betway, get way more.
Remember who we are seeing now. At risk of prostate enlargement. We a member or her. 20 ebitimi prostate cancer. 5 bitimi afamu. Nadia obefamu.
Actually, this is not my fault.
And to wada, entina midi maniche Executive Prostate Center.
Executive Prostate Center is a unique medical center where we harmonize in-depth traditional medicine with cutting-edge science and technology to cure, to treat, and to prevent diseases like prostate enlargement, prostate cancer.
Executive Prostate Center. facilities no any professional medical care.
Sisi a bibia clear wɔ system no. Yen no ne so de natural. Into we koso afama ye.
Executive Prostate Center. My cured.
Welcome back. My guest is Ambassador Virginia Evelyn Palmer, and I'd like to remind you, 40 years, I mean, that's incredible, in public service, half of that in Africa, 3 in Ghana. This is her last post. And let's talk about visas. According to the embassy, out of 61,000 visa applications submitted, I think it was last year, only 25,000 were approved. I don't know what comparator to use. Is that okay? Is that a problem?
Oh, see, I was going to say, we issued 25,000 visas. There are that many visitors in the United States. And Ghana is a huge sender of students to the United States, 19th globally, which I think is really impressive.
So this is like 40%, right? 25,000 out of 60K, so like 40%.
U.S. visa law requires an applicant to demonstrate that they're going to return. And it's tricky with Ghanaians having lots of family ties in the United States and economic times being tough in Ghana, as everybody feels, I know, to demonstrate those ties sometimes.
So you're basically saying sometimes our visa approval rates are low because of the record of those who've gone and not come back. We're punishing the children for the sins of their fathers.
Well, I'm saying if you can demonstrate that you want to visit the United States, either as a tourist or to do business or to study, you're going to get a visa.
But I'm told, look, there are very good Ghanaians in very high positions. You mentioned the education program. There are lots of highly skilled Ghanaians working in medical field, doctors and nurses. Just explain to me, is it that the US does not necessarily want those people, or that if you're coming as a visitor, don't overstay? Just explain to the ordinary listener, because on one hand, you're happy to say, look, you have great doctors working in New York and stuff, and yet you guys are overstaying your visas. So what's going on there?
Thanks. There are two kinds of visas.
Okay.
There's a non-immigrant visa, which is a visitor visa or a student visa. It's a visa for somebody who doesn't want to live there.
Okay.
And then there's an immigrant visa, which is somebody who is married to an American or has an American brother or sister, as you do, working and living in the United States, American citizens, or someone with skills that we really need, like the doctors and nurses that you're talking about.
Okay.
So a lot of people who apply for a visitor visa have the intention of being immigrants. And so they're not entitled to an immigrant visa, and they need to get in the proper queue, or they need to be entitled and then get in the queue for an immigrant visa. If they go as a visitor and stay, they've jumped the queue, essentially, for the Ghanaians in the immigrant visa queue. And so the people in the immigrant visa queue should say, no, my brother, get in line behind me where you belong. And if you are a visitor, then please apply for a visitor visa. But if you want to live in the United States, please, if you're eligible, get in line behind
me. Because presumably the immigrant visa is much more elaborate process.
Yes.
So that if you go as a visitor and then you overstay, as you said, you jump the queue because maybe that's just come for the World Cup in 2026.
Exactly.
Go watch 4 games and come back.
Exactly. And we welcome that. And really enthusiastically welcome it. Welcome students who stay for 4 years and then do a year of internship as their visa will permit. And then come back and do great things in Ghana. Or adjust status and get a work visa if they do it legally. But if they have just overstayed, there's an emphasis on saying, no, you need to obey the laws, please, and go home. As Ghana does to Americans who break the rules.
Yeah, there were some deportations from the US to Ghana, but the past few weeks I've had people complain, not even the past few months, that there appears to be some backlog of visas for 2 reasons. So a lot of people are not even able to secure appointments. What's going on there?
Let me address the deportations for a second, if I may. That Minister Ablakwa and I have had some good conversations about that, and we're in good comms about that. And we have promised to inform the Minister of Interior if there's anybody with a criminal record that is getting deported, so that the Ghanaian authorities will be ready to receive them. But there haven't been mass deportations. About a dozen Ghanaians have been deported. And
so that's quite a low number.
It's It's a very low number.
Okay.
And they've been deported because they've broken the law in the United States and or overstayed, but I think mostly...
Because the impression was created that
exactly.
non-documented people in America were being rounded up and roundly deported. That's not correct. Not from Ghana.
Not from Ghana.
Not okay. So let's talk about the backlog then.
When I arrived in Ghana, the wait time was 440 days. And that was a kind of a hangover from COVID and the visa officers having to work in the embassy to do their visa work and not being able to come to work because of COVID. And I'm very proud that number has been reduced because of the hard work of visa officers to 100 days or thereabouts. And we have had some problems with the contractor. We shifted in order to make it more efficient to schedule appointments. And we had some very serious hiccups with that, and I apologize for that. And I certainly put the company on notice. And they have been trying to address that. So please call the helpline if you have trouble scheduling an appointment. And if you have an appointment and it's past the date that you want to travel, unfortunately not just for a vacation. If you want to travel for a vacation, I need to urge you to apply early. But if you have a business meeting
or student who has admission,
or class is starting, then we have something on the website to apply for an emergency, or it's called an expedited visa appointment. It's free.
Correct.
And we knock ourselves out to get students interviewed in time for classes to start. And it's because it's May now, I will say that my consular officers last summer did more than 10,000 interviews in 6 weeks in order to get students to class on time.
More than 10,000 interviews in 6 weeks.
Yes, and I'm very proud of that. And because I certainly understand that students' dreams, you know, and financial aid and all that kind of thing depends on getting the visa in time. So I also urge students to get their I-20 from the university early. Quickly. You can get it 6 months in advance and apply as soon as you can.
So on the website there is you call it emergency.
Yes, expedited visa.
Expedited. So guys, go on the website and check.
Yes, and you can also, people, cancel their appointment because they cancel their travel plans or something like that. So slots open up, and you can just check to see if an appointment will open up earlier, and you can change your appointment for free 3 times. And again, if you change it once, twice, a third time, it doesn't cost you anything to take that earlier appointment.
What's your closing message to Ghanaians as you leave?
Ghana is wonderful. Thank you for the warm welcome. I am deeply respectful of your tolerance, your religious tolerance, your ethnic tolerance, the way you care for one another. It's the source of your stability. Please keep it up. Please continue to deepen the relationship with the United States. I have been very grateful for it, and I think our relationship really is in our mutual interest.
Thank you. Not just for the interview, but for the work. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Ambassador Virginia Palmer is leaving Ghana after 3 years of service, and she's done a really great job, as you can see from the things we showed you. Thank you for watching tonight's edition of the show. We'll see you next time. Have a great Monday evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you.